Hello everybody, how are you doing? It's another amazing Wednesday, and that means I get to introduce to you another iconic woman. Now today we met a mentor, philanthropist, a renowned businesswoman, and she has also been named Africa's 100 most influential people by the New African magazine. Guess what? Her first job was a manager at the age of 15. Interesting, right? Let's go meet her. Hello, Gina.
How are you? Welcome.
You look so gorgeous.
Thank you.
And that green looks really good on you. Who dressed you?
I dressed myself. I love getting ready.
You did all this by yourself? I want to be you when I grow up.
Oh, that's going to be a long time away because you're still a baby.
I am. Really, but you look really good.
Thank you.
Asante sana kwa kutukaribisha.
Thank you. Welcome.
Gina, you are a force to reckon with.
Thank
and
you.
Not just here. I am in awe. I was telling my producer earlier, I'm like, I am so nervous, excited, all of those put together.
Thank you. What a
Especially
compliment.
as a communication student, when you leave school, I remember when I cleared college, there was only one place everybody wanted to go in my class, and that was Gina Din.
Oh, that's nice. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, so when I say a force to reckon, and to be here today, it is very, very humbling.
Oh, thank you. Well, welcome.
Asante sana. During my intro, I said your first job was at 15. You were a manager at 15, and that takes us back to when you were a little girl. Who was little Gina?
So I'm the youngest of four girls. I have three older sisters, three at that time extremely glamorous, incredible women. I was the accident child, so there's a big gap between me and the next one. But they're amazing, strong women, and I feel very blessed that I had these three people to look up to. But I was the youngest. I was brought up and born in Nanyuki. My parents, the family had a hotel, the Sportsman's Arms Hotel,
Yeah,
and
the famous one.
The famous one, yeah. And I had an absolutely magical childhood. Very happy because there was a big gap between me and my sisters. I was almost like an only child and brought up, very much like that. And so I was very, very blessed to have the incredible parents that I had.
Yeah.
And the family that I grew up in, as well as growing up in Nanyuki, which is an incredible place. It was then, it is now.
It still is. And when you ask my parents, they say, from when I was a little girl, I keep saying I would retire in Nanyuki.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I used to wake up every morning to the beautiful view of Mount Kenya. I mean, what could be better?
And that has not changed for you all these years later?
No, I still go, whenever I do go back, and I don't go back as often as I should, it's still very magical. I mean, that view of the mountain every day and that fresh mountain air, it's incredible.
Your journey now, the woman that Gina Din is now, how was that influenced by the little Gina and growing up in Nanyuki with a close-knit family in business at that point? Did it influence the kind of person
100%. I mean, I don't think there's anything more powerful than watching two parents work extremely hard. Yeah. And I think for me, that's where I learned it. I mean, I grew up in the hotel, so there was no difference between home and the hotel. So I was surrounded by people all the time. We used to eat in the main hotel dining room. I didn't even know for a long time that wasn't normal, because that was home. So that's the way. I didn't know picking up the phone and asking for room service wasn't normal, because that's the way I grew up. I grew up in a hotel. But yeah, so, watching parents work really hard, being part of the business from a very young age. You talk about at the age of 15, I was very lucky that, my parents allowed me to have my own little disco at the Sportsman's Arms and charge for it.
What is it called?
It was called the Din's Den.
Oh.
And I was very proud of it. So
Din's Den. Did you start it?
Yeah, I started it.
How much would you charge for?
You know what? I really can't remember, but it seemed like it was quite expensive at the time. We'd sell tickets at the door, and we'd play music till really late, which was about 1 a.m. At that time. But yeah, it was fun.
What would you do with the money?
Just buy things that, buy whatever it was that I needed at that time. There wasn't much that my parents didn't, but it was just nice to have my own income.
and to even know what to do with it, because then that teaches you at a very, very young age how to save, what to do with the money.
And how to manage the business, because you had to hire equipment, you had to sometimes hire a DJ, and so from a very early age I figured that bit out.
It was very easy for you to just get into the family business, do this and continue. But then you chose communication and you went away to study that. What influenced that decision?
So my father was a very well-read man. He was completely my North Star, and a very intellectual person.
Yeah.
And so from him I learned the art of reading and the art of writing, and he used to write a lot. And I kind of felt a real draw towards that field, and a communicator. And yes, the family business, but Nanyuki at some point, you don't want to be in a small town the whole of your life. So there was I definitely had aspirations to do other things.
Okay, so you went away for studies.
Yes, I did. I went and did journalism, and that's my education is journalism. But before that, I was at school in Nanyuki. I was at school in Nairobi, a boarding school, which I absolutely hated, and I was a terrible student. I was definitely a D most of my growing up.
Oh.
So yeah.
And what did you see the way when you're little, you go into class and everybody's asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you have that
I think it's quite unfair, to make people make decisions even on subjects and stuff when they're like 15 or 16, because we don't really know who we are yet.
It's true.
But yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I just did what I was good at, which was which was writing, because I really sucked at most of the other subjects.
I read somewhere that even some teachers put you down at some point because of the grades, and that did not put you down. Was it the confidence that you got from home, the support and all of that, to be above all of that?
I think my parents were very edifying. They would always validate us 4 girls. And I think that was so important, especially for my father, who obviously would have loved to have had a son, and yet ended up with these four girls. And at never one time did we ever feel that he was disappointed, or and I'm sure now that I'm older, I'm sure he must have been urging to himself to have a son, but he never made us feel that way. He made each one of us feel like we were a queen, and that we could be whatever we wanted to be. And he told us that, that they told us that all the time.
This is quite the message for all parents out there who have boys or girls, and you think that if you had somebody else, if you had a certain gender, that would have been better, my life would have been different. But all kids come from God. They are all gifts in their own different ways. So you take up what you've been gifted by God and make the best out of it. Love them and make them know that they are the greatest that they could ever be.
100%.
Yeah.
And listen to your kids. I think, that's the other thing my parents did very well, is that they really listened to us. And I love that. Those are my memories of me sitting, with my parents and just talking and sharing. And I have tried to do that with my own children. And it is the most beautiful experience.
Absolutely. Let's move to Barclays.
Yes.
That is, I think, that was the point in your life where everything just blew up and you knew this is what I want to do, and you quit and everything that happened. And you grew your own brand at Barclays when there was no social media, and the PR was it even
a thing.
there? It wasn't
a thing, right? It wasn't a thing. So I joined Barclays at the age of 21.
Yeah.
In a very senior position. So I was, the head of PR at 21. And I joined on a 9-month contract. They were going public. It was the first company to go public in Kenya after 16 years. So we were, creating awareness campaigns on what going public means, what it meant for an investor, and also raising the brand of Barclays. So I joined for that period of time. And I ended up staying 14 years. And it was the most magical, period ever. Because I grew as a person. Again, I worked for the most incredible bosses, that were very, very affirming, that never made me feel that I was young or that I was a woman and I couldn't do any, they just knew that I could. And so I think for me it was a very special place to land, to start my career. And I did whatever I could do to the best of my ability. And I think that's what really proved to me that even though I was young and quite inexperienced,
Yeah.
that if you do the best that you can and you hold yourself to a very high standard, which I did and I continue to, that you can really overcome any challenges. And you can do, I used to put my hand up all the time to say, yes, I can do it, even when I didn't know how.
Yeah, you quite literally changed the game for Kenyans at that point, even in terms of education, because now this became a subject that we were taught in school. It became a degree at some point, and when you started, it wasn't there.
No.
Now, looking at the society right now with all the things that we have, the technology that we have, and you did all this without all of that. Would it have been different for you now if you were to start all over again with all these things?
It's so easy now.
It
like,
is?
you know, if you're not a brand now, then
Yeah.
there's something wrong, because each one of us can, if we have a phone,
Yeah.
we can become a brand.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I did it when there was absolutely, there was no other way of doing it except really hard, really slogging the hard way and networking and just refusing to take no for an answer and, taking my seat at the table and refusing to go away. So I did it the old-fashioned way. And I feel very proud of that. Yeah. I really do. I feel I feel very proud of having done that at that time, because now it's definitely so easy.
It's back in the day, there were few women in such high places in terms of the corporate world. How was it for you as a woman, and a beautiful woman at that? There's a lot of objectification that's going around in offices, in whatever, and I'm glad that we've made changes over the year. We have women in the army taking up all the ranks all the way up there. We have women running for president right now. But at that point, as a woman, what are some of the challenges that you went through?
Well, I think I definitely got patronized a lot. There was a lot of people that, we'd be in a room and the tea would come in and everybody would kind of look at me like,
tea
like,
girl.
yeah, like are you going to pour, and I would just sit there and like not, but also it was, the level of engagement was different,
Okay.
that I would never get the hard hitting questions. I'd get niceties of how nice my shoes were or how nice my outfits were. But the hard-hitting questions would go to my male colleagues. And so, that used to bother me, and it made me very conscious that I had to take that seat at the table and not go anywhere and make myself heard. And so I would always make myself heard. I would always bring my point of view to the table, whether I was asked or not.
Beautiful. So 14 years later, you left Barclays, and I want to really get to know and understand what was going on with you. But I cannot, for the life of me, ignore this. You call it a wall of fame?
Yeah.
It is a wall of fame.
It's my journey.
It is your journey. Looking at it, I see all our presidents apart from Jomo. How long ago does this go back to?
So I started my business in 22 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'd think probably one of the oldest would be this one.
That is Arab.
Yes, yeah.
The late.
But then it's been throughout that period. It's been, and actually when we moved offices, we had to edit this wall because there just wasn't enough space. So there's a whole bunch of others somewhere. But yeah, it's been a fun journey, and it's been absolutely, it's been an incredible journey, and I feel very blessed to have met some amazing people.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Leonardo.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I want to talk about the Gina Din group, and maybe we can head out to
Okay.
your office. It's okay. It's okay. It's like.
What was that?
I hope you did.
Oh, well.
14 years later, first of all, this is where the magic happens. The deals, everything when you sit in the boardroom.
Well, don't forget, I just moved here.
Okay.
I've spent my whole time in my corporate offices.
Yeah.
So this is all very new for me.
Okay.
This is chapter 2 place. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, but
We'll get to that
fun.
because I'd like to even know how it is for you. Is it a moment? Is it a, oh my God, what do I do with myself now? But before all of that, 14 years at Barclays. And then you decided to go solo.
So 14 years of, very high profile Barclays work. It was awesome. Really like corporate stuff. I got to, because it's a bank, you learn a lot about your clients. So I got to learn a little bit about, the different big corporates that banked with Barclays. Mm-hmm. And I got quite well known as a brand on my own. So 14 years later, I'm just trying to figure out, I've got 2 young kids by then. I definitely want to spend more time with them. I want to be at every event that they have at school. And being employed was definitely going to be really difficult for me to carry on doing that. But I didn't know what else to do, and I was talking to my boss, who was very, very supportive. And I said to him, I don't know. They kept promoting me and paying me more, which was great. But I just, there was some part of me that felt quite unfulfilled and like I was being called to do something different. And so when I went to talk to him, he said, well, why don't you just do what you do for us, but do it for more corporates and set up your own business? And I'm like, well, there's no way I can do that. And leaving the comfort of full-time employment was quite scary. Yeah. But he encouraged me, and actually I was very lucky because I left with the Barclays account.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Because you already knew their ins and outs, so it was easier for you to start from. That must have been a really good boss.
It was great. He was great. They closed down the PR department of the bank, and I got a 3-year contract to carry on doing the work for them. So that was my anchor client. It was incredible.
Were you with them to the end?
I did 3 years. I did 3 years with them. Okay. So my first client was Barclays. So when you look at it in the totality, it was 14 plus another 3.
Plus another 3. Yeah. This time as the boss.
This time as on the outside. Yeah, as the outside. But it was a lot more work.
Yeah. Starting a business on your own is not easy. So what are some of the things that you had to deal with? Because at this point, you can't do everything by yourself, though you want to, because probably you don't have resources or maybe a proper office or these people. What was that? What was that like for you?
So it's hard. First of all, you're leaving the comfort of this large multinational corporate that looks after you in every way.
Yes.
They take care of your security. They take care of your car. They take care of literally everything, and they pay you really well. And you're leaving it for an unknown of yourself, and you don't know whether you're going to get a paycheck. You don't know, it's really the unknown. But I think for an entrepreneur and as a founder, it can be quite a solitary journey. It can be quite lonely building a business. I started with very little money, just savings that, as a family we had. But of course I got Barclays as my first client. And then, then the journey begins of you realizing that actually you're not going to have that much more time. Yeah. And you're definitely initially not going to have much more money because you're so busy, reinvesting into the business. So it's really tough. It's like being in the wilderness, you're eating berries, you're eating anything that you can get. So you're taking any client that you can get because you just need the cash.
So even if the business was not making sense at that point, you just had clients coming in and all of this just to be busy and look like I'm just creating relationships with these people.
Well, you needed the money. Yeah. So you take in clients that maybe, or you do things that maybe if further along in my journey I didn't. Yeah. But initially, I did all sorts of things just to pay bills. So it's tough. It's very lonely, and I felt like I was in the wilderness for quite a long time. You have to service these clients. Yeah. So then you hire people, and then of course you're in offices, so you're paying rent. So you're not ending up with that much money yourself, because by the time you've paid your guys, you've paid the rent, you're having to pay your own fuel. There are all these things that you don't think about when you're employed. So it's different.
What are some of the lessons that you learned during this particular phase? Because it's not easy, but then you went through it.
It's not easy, and I didn't have a plan. A lot of people talk about business plans all that stuff. I didn't have any of that. I had a dream. And I think one of the things that I really learned is that a dream can be a plan. I think that's one of the things that I've really learned is that if you have a dream and you're passionate about what you're doing and you throw yourself into it, then that can become a plan. You know, people talk about all these plans and strategies, and I didn't have any of that.
Did you see the end goal, or you were seeing the vision where you were going as Gina Din and the group?
I knew what I wanted to create quite early on. As soon as I got into the thing, I'm like, wow, this is a thing, you know, because PR was very much part of an advertising agency. There were very few standalone PR agencies, if any. And if there were any PR agencies, they were part of an advertising company. So people thought I was completely crazy. Like, what are you doing? You know, how are you going to even make money out of that? But I had a vision. I could see there was a niche in the market for what I did, and you know, it became quite generic. People would go for interviews and they'd say, "I'm looking for a Gina Din."
Yes.
And that was quite interesting for me, because then that meant that I'd created something that people wanted.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be the person that filled that gap in the market, and I wanted to grow my business to be that person that filled the gap. And we did.
You did.
And we did. And we created a whole lot more Gina Dins.
Safaricom was one of the biggest clients. Like, you started the journey with Safaricom when they were nobody. I had a conversation with Michael Joseph a while back, and we were saying we started a small room at
Tiny room at the Norfolk.
Norfolk, yes. And it was just a dream for him as well. He'd come here and he wanted to build this thing. There's a Gina Din somewhere who has a dream. How was that for you, growing such a huge
So
brand?
it was great. I mean, I look back at it now, and Michael and I were both on journeys of dreams.
Yeah.
You know, and we connected, and we were figuring it out. We were trying to figure it out as we went along. You know, I was very new in my business. I'd only had my business 2 years when we got Safaricom.
Yeah.
So it was pretty hectic. You know, suddenly you're only 2 years old, you're still building your own brand, and you get Safaricom. And you're building not just the Safaricom brand, you're also building the mobile phone industry, because don't forget, we didn't have a mobile phone industry.
Yeah.
So letting people know what it meant, what it could do, all that, it was incredible. It was honestly an incredible journey. But it also was proof to me that, you know, we need to put our hand out more as women and say, yes, I know how to do it. I had no clue. Absolutely no clue.
But you said yes to the job.
Yes, I said yes,
I'll do it.
I know, and I know exactly what you need. And I didn't. But, you know, I figured it out along the way, because we can do that. As women, we do that, right? We figure it out. I mean, we didn't know how to be mothers when we became mothers, and we figured it out.
Yes.
So what's the difference between that and business? We will figure it out. And that's really what I learned, is that I can figure most things out.
She is a philanthropist and has been named 100 top... Hello everybody, how are you doing? Another Nazar. It's been here the whole time, like it's just... And maybe we can head out to your office. It's okay.